All right, so we're going to go jump back and we're going to be looking at the mathematics of voting, and we're going to be talking about some voting theory and how voting and different things, how we use math in this, and some of the mathematical ideas behind it. So the first things first is whenever you're voting, you're given a list of candidates or you're given a list of options. So this could be anything from voting for the president or a representative down to voting for where you're going to go to lunch or what the school mascot's going to be or where to go on a trip. Okay, so when you get your list, there's many different ways of doing it. The one way that we're going to be looking at it mostly is that we're going to be making um, prefer per, preference ballots. So which ones you prefer over each other. So what you're going to do is you're going to mostly list them. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, depending on what it is, and you list them in the order in which you want them. You know, your favorite on top, your least favorite on bottom. Okay. And the big thing with these is that they are transitive, which means that if one of the options gets eliminated, all the others move up. Everyone below it moves up one position. And so what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at two different methods, the Borda count method and the polarity method. The first one we're going to be looking at is the polarity method. Now the polarity method is the one that we use in America a lot. It's kind of like the winner takes all method. And, uh, basically it's whoever is got the most votes wins, and that's how we've set up for our electing level of officials for years. Presidential elections are a little bit different, which is okay, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the electoral college and dividing up power more. Uh, but with the polarity method, it's basically whoever has the most first place votes wins. Now this is good because it agrees with the majority criteria, which basically says if you have a majority of the first place votes, you should win. Okay, which obviously this method has to agree with. The problem is that you run into is the Condorcet criteria, which the Condorcet criteria basically is if there was only two people out of the four people running, so like our previous example where we had Sam Samuelson, John Johnson, David Davidson, and Eric Erickson, if you were only to take two of them, the person that gets the most votes, like between the two, should be chosen. So whoever's the most popular between each two head to head should be the winner. Now with the polarity method, what can happen is that one person could get 48 votes, first place votes, and then he's the least liked candidate for the last 50 votes. But the problem is that nobody else has matched his 50 votes, and he would win. Well, a majority of the people in the population do not like him. And so with that, why should he be elected if a majority of the people do not like this person? Okay, and that's the Condorcet criteria. Basically, you're going to break up everybody out and see how many votes each, and whoever gets the most votes and wins will agree with this. There's other methods that we'll look at to agree with this, but anyway. So that's the Condorcet criteria, and that's the big problem with the polarity method. Now, there's also another major problem, and the major problem with that is, with the polarity method is something called Duverger's law, which you might have heard about Duverger's law maybe in a history class or a social studies class. But what it is, it deals mostly in political science and voting theory, and the idea is that if you have a winner-take-all situation, so whoever gets the most votes wins, what's going to happen? And if you finish third, second, or fourth, doesn't matter. What's going to happen is that if you have multiple parties, so like here, we got the Communist Party, the Whig Party, the Libertarian, Green Party, Socialist Party, all these parties. Okay, you've got a plethora of parties that you can choose from. What's going to happen is that over time, they're going to start becoming weaker and weaker and weaker because the parties that are in power are going to stay in power because more people are going to choose them. Okay, and the reason for this is something called strategic voting. And what strategic voting is let's say in the last election, okay, you've got Obama and Romney. Let's say you hate both of them. You don't want either of them to be president. Okay, but then the third party candidate, who is it? Gary Johnson was running, and you like his ideas, and you're like, you know what, I like him, I wish I could vote for him. But the problem is that there's no way he's going to win. Okay, it's almost impossible for him to win. And so what you're going to start thinking is, well, okay, he's not going to win. Well, I want to vote for the winner, and I want to try to, I want to be on the winning team because everybody wants to be on the winning team. Nobody wants to be the losers. And so then you start thinking, okay, who do I hate less? Do I like Romney more than Obama, or do I like Obama more than Romney? And then you go, okay, I'm going to vote for this person. And that's who you would vote for. You're not going to vote for your first choice because you know they're not going to win. That's strategic voting. And what happens is that these other parties, these weaker parties that are smaller, start getting eliminated. And the bigger parties become the ones in charge. And then it becomes a two-party system. And that's what Duverger's law does. And there's a little extension to that. What the idea is that given a two-party system, what's going to happen is there's going to be some sort of event, and it's going to splinter off, and it's going to break everybody apart again, and then over time again it's going to bring down. But basically, if you were to take this off into infinity and go in an infinite time length, it's going to go down to two parties. And we see this in American history. I mean, in the early 1900s, there was 3 people running for president sometimes, and they were winning states. Now that's almost impossible for that to happen, just based on how we have our system worked out and how everybody is completely split. I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and I'm only going to vote for these people. And so that's what's happened. These parties are too strong, or have become too powerful, and that now the third parties cannot keep up. And that's the big problem with a polarity method, a winner-take-all type of method. Okay. Now there is an alternative. The alternative is something called the Borda count method. Okay. And what the Borda count method is that it gives a number of points per position. So what you would do is that you would list your candidates from favorite to least favorite. 1, 2, 3, 4. You would rank them. And then each position, first place would get a certain number of points, second place would get a certain number of points, third place would get a certain number of points, and fourth place, and so on and so forth, would get a certain number of points. Now there are, this is used a lot, especially in sports is the big one. Any type of MVP voting, usually for the big sports in this country, use a Borda count method. They rank, their top 3 or something, and then first place gets like 10 votes, second place gets 5 votes, third place gets 1 vote. Okay, that's an example. They use Borda count all the time. So almost every MVP voting, they do that. The Heisman Trophy, they do this type of voting. The AP polls for the top 25 for basketball and football, these are Borda count methods. They rank their top 25, and then first place gets 25 votes, second place gets 24, and so on and so forth. Whoever has the most votes is first place, and then you work down from there. That's the Borda count method. Now there is a problem with this. It doesn't always agree with the majority criteria. Sometimes if you have over 50% of the votes, first place votes, you still could lose. And that is a big problem with this, but it is very rare that it occurs. Okay, but the Borda count method is just another way of counting votes. And we're going to be looking at this, and we're going to be looking at a couple other ways of counting votes and different ways of ranking everybody. Okay, so I hope this helps for this first section.